Ashes and gold, the Stoic lesson of loss. There are two things a man must face to know his true self: what he loses, and how he responds to it. Loss is the forge of the soul. It burns away illusion, comfort, and vanity, leaving only what is real. Every man walks through that fire at some point. Some emerge hardened and bitter. Others, refined, like gold. This is the story of those who learn to turn ashes into wisdom. Once, there was a craftsman. A man who built his life from nothing but his hands and his will. He owned little, but what he owned, he cherished: his tools, his small home, his quiet dignity. One evening, as the sun fell behind the hills, a fire broke out. By morning, everything he had built was gone. His home reduced to ash, his workshop to smoke, his dreams scattered like dust. The villagers gathered around, whispering, watching. Some pitied him, others called it fate, but the craftsman said nothing. He simply sat before the smoldering ruins, his hands black with soot, his face calm, almost serene. A young boy approached him and asked, "Aren't you angry? Don't you hate the gods for this?" The craftsman looked at the ashes and said softly, "They have only taken what they could. What remains, they could never touch." The boy frowned. "What remains?" The craftsman placed his hand on his chest. "This loss," the Stoics said, "is not destruction. It is revelation. When you lose what you cling to, you discover what you truly are." Seneca once wrote, "No man is crushed by fortune unless he first allows himself to be defeated by her." He understood that loss is not measured by what is taken from us, but by how tightly we held on. We call something mine, my house, my wealth, my love. But in truth, nothing is ours. Everything is borrowed. We are tenants of time. And everything we possess, every person, every joy, will eventually return to the source from which it came. To the Stoic, this isn't tragedy. It is the natural rhythm of life. To resist it is to invite suffering. To accept it is to find peace. When Marcus Aurelius lost his children, he did not curse the heavens. He wrote in his journal, "You have endured this before, and you can endure it again." The universe takes back what it lent you. To the ordinary man, that sounds cold. But to the Stoic, it is clarity. He sees death and loss as reminders that nothing was ever truly his to begin with. And yet, that doesn't mean he feels nothing. A Stoic is not a statue. He feels the sting of grief, but he does not become its prisoner. He mourns, but with reason, not despair. He remembers, but without chains. There's a passage by Epictetus that cuts like a blade. When you kiss your child goodnight, whisper to yourself, "They may not wake." When you send a friend away, remember, they may never return. Do this not in fear, but in gratitude, for you have been allowed to love them today. Gratitude in the face of loss, that is the discipline of the wise. Because everything we lose was once a gift. Every ending was once a beginning. Every silence was once laughter. To live with this awareness is to stop taking moments for granted. To hold without clinging. To love without owning. To live without fearing the end. The craftsman rebuilt his home, slower this time, simpler. Each nail hammered not with ambition, but with understanding. He no longer built to possess. He built to create. He would tell the boy, "Gold and ashes are the same to a man who has learned what truly matters." The boy didn't understand at first. But years later, when he lost his own father, he finally did. Loss teaches what abundance cannot. When you have everything, You believe you control life. When you lose everything, you realize life was never yours to control. That realization breaks some people. But for others, it liberates them. Because once you stop clinging to what can be taken, you become untouchable. Your peace is no longer held hostage by circumstance. Your worth is no longer tied to possession. Your joy no longer depends on permanence. That is what the Stoics called invulnerability of the soul. Think of gold. Before it shines, it must be burned. Before it becomes pure, it must be melted. Fire doesn't destroy gold, it refines it. And loss doesn't destroy the wise, it reveals them. When life burns away your illusions, you begin to see clearly what cannot be taken. Your character, your virtue, your mind, your will. These are the treasures no fire can touch. Seneca lost his fortune more than once. He was exiled, betrayed, and ordered to take his own life. And yet, he wrote some of his most powerful words while facing death. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor. He understood that suffering is not in the event, but in the judgment we attach to it. We call something bad because it hurts. But the Stoic looks deeper and asks, what lesson hides beneath this pain? Loss becomes teacher. Pain becomes purification. Suffering becomes transformation. The Stoic knows that nothing is guaranteed. Not health, not wealth, not love, not even tomorrow. He wakes each day with the understanding that it could be his last. And because of that, he lives fully, not in fear, but in presence. He eats simply, laughs sincerely, loves deeply. He holds people as if each embrace might be the final one. He knows that even gold turns to dust. But while it shines, it reflects the light beautifully. Once, a student came to the philosopher Cleanthes and said, I have lost everything, my home, my trade, my name. How can I endure this? Cleanthes replied, then you have lost only what the world can take. Now, begin to build what it cannot. The student asked, and what is that? The philosopher said, yourself. Loss is an invitation to rebuild on a stronger foundation. Not on wealth, not on pride, but on virtue. The Stoics taught that virtue, courage, justice, wisdom, and temperance are the only things truly good. Because they are the only things fully within your control. You can lose everything outside of you, but never what's within, unless you surrender it. That is why the Stoic never truly loses. He either keeps what he values, or learns what to value more deeply. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, accept everything that happens as if you had chosen it. This is not blind acceptance, it is power. When you stop fighting what has already happened, you reclaim the strength to shape what comes next. To say yes to life, even when it hurts, is to rise above it. Loss tries to break your grip on what was. Acceptance frees your hand to build what will be. The craftsman grew old, his hair turned silver, his hands calloused with time. One evening, as the same boy, now a man, visited him. They sat beside the quiet river where the ashes of his old home once drifted. The man asked, do you ever miss it, the life you had before the fire? The craftsman smiled, every day, but I am grateful it burned. Why? Because before the fire, I thought I owned the world. After it, I learned I only owned myself. The Stoic sees loss not as punishment, but as purification. When life strips away your comforts, it is asking you to remember what cannot be stripped. You are not what you possess. You are not what you lose. You are what remains after loss. and if what remains is strong, honest, and disciplined, then you have not lost at all. We live in a world terrified of loss. We protect, hoard, and cling to money, to status, to relationships, even to youth. But the more we cling, the more fragile we become. Because everything we cling to must eventually leave us. The Stoic path is not about indifference. It's about courage. The courage to love deeply, knowing it might end. To give your all, knowing you can lose it. To build, knowing time will take it back. Because the value lies not in its permanence, but in your presence while it lasted. When all you have turns to ashes, you have two choices: to sit in the smoke and curse the wind, or to rise, gather what remains, and begin again. Wiser, calmer, freer. That is the Stoic's choice. He knows that the fire cannot touch his soul. He knows that beneath the ashes, the gold of his character still shines. He knows that life, in all its cruelty and grace, is not meant to be owned, but experienced, understood, transcended. So when loss comes, as it will, remember the craftsman sitting beside the ruins of his home. Remember Marcus, writing by lamplight while his empire trembled. Remember Seneca, facing death with calm resolve. Remember Epictetus, who owned nothing, yet lacked nothing. They all learned the same lesson. What burns is temporary. What remains is eternal. You will lose. You will grieve. You will hurt. But if you face it with clarity and virtue, you will emerge not broken, but cleansed. Because life is not measured by what you keep, but by what you become when everything is taken. Ashes are gold. Both come from the same fire. The difference is in what you choose to see.